Hello. Missed it again. Never mind. Good morning. Here we are. We'll get started formally in a moment because we are, as usual, farting around. At least I'm farting around. Max is getting impatient with the fact that I'm sort of a neophyte when it comes to technical things. Oh, what the heck. Let's have a look into things. Select a file. Preview. No, we'll have to go with this. Stand by your seats. Now, you couldn't bear to miss that, could you? There were all those pictures of Sussex, mostly East Sussex. But nonetheless, we cover not only Sussex, we cover the world. And in a few minutes, we'll send out all sorts of invitations to people to see whether they'll come and join us this morning. For the moment, you've got the Max and me.
Good morning. I said good morning.
He said good morning. Yeah, he's actually bright and breezy this morning. However, be careful. Do not try to shake hands with him through that screen. He's fractured his wrist. How did you do that?
Well.
Okay. You fell.
No, I didn't. I didn't do anything to it. It took a while for it to show up. It was hurting. I didn't know what was going on, and then it started to bruise and swell up. What it is a stress fracture.
Yeah, you've been lifting heavy things like motorbikes.
Well, lifting heavy things at the gym.
I see.
So they asked me, have you been lifting anything heavy recently? And I was like, no, not really. Oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, a couple of things. I've been going to the gym recently.
He's been producing a health show. You see what happens if you produce a health show. you ruin your health.
So yeah, they believe it's a stress fracture, but I just have a wrist support. 6 to 7 weeks, it should clear up.
Well, let's hope so. That's a long time for being hurting, as it were.
Yeah, it does. And I don't know how it's going to affect the gym show, because it's going to put it on hold for a little bit. I don't really know, to be honest. Lots of leg days and cardio from now on. No lifting heavy weights.
Right. Okay. So you'll be telling Steve what to do, and you can stand by and sit in comfort with a gin and tonic. Now, what's your favourite tipple? I've forgotten. It's Budweiser, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. With a Budweiser. There you are, Budweiser. Some free advertising. Go to the gym with a bud. It's like take a shower with a friend. But now we've come. Well, you see what? Isn't it funny? Because a lot of successful. Somebody tried during this recent heat scare to say, do something with somebody else to save water. One of the most successful campaigns of all time. And I've got a feeling that it was, I was still in Northern Ireland, so it could have been in the 1980s. The advertisement was, take a shower with a friend, save water.
That is a strange advertisement.
Oh, I don't know. In those days, it was a bit naughty. We weren't as liberal as you lot today.
Well, I do have some good news. Yeah, I have my motorbike finally. That's getting delivered.
Right. Well, I wish we could show you the photograph, but perhaps you can transfer that during the day, and we can show people your new motorbike. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very interesting. It's just a 125, but it's going to be fun. I'm going to be able to zip around. And
listen, any motorbike is interesting to me. I had a Lambretta Mind you, it was the top of the range Lambretta when I was at university, and boy, did that thing vroom, vroom, vroom. But I've never owned a motorbike, believe it or not. I always went from the Lambretta to a car. But it was a pretty powerful motor scooter. A pretty powerful motor scooter.
Back in those days, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. And back in those days. Well, it shifted enough to break the speed limit because the RCMP nicked us a couple of times.
Broke the speed limits? Really?
Yes. Oh, yeah, no, it could go 60 or 70 miles an hour.
On a Lambretta?
Yeah, at the top of the range Lambretta. It was a powerful beast. But the other time that I rode on a scooter was, I suppose it would be towards the middle of the 2000s, perhaps. We went to holiday in Sorrento in Italy, and went down the Amalfi Coast, and I hired a Lambretta, a scooter. I put my wife on the back, and away we tootled down all those curvy roads and so on. And we had a very good day out. When we came back, we walked into the bar, and everybody started to laugh. And we'd got ourselves covered so much dust and so on and so forth, but we'd had goggles on, and there were 2 white patches on our faces. That's very fun. But motorbikes I've ridden on the back of, but never actually been astride one. I understand it's quite a thrill when you feel the power underneath you.
It is, yeah. I've driven motorbikes for quite a long time now. Some of my fondest memories were being at my grandparents' house, and they had a motorbike that they had in their field. And what they would do is they would not cut the field for a couple months, and then they would get the big tractor and cut the grass into like racetracks for like the grandkids to race around on and do like time trials and stuff in the motorbikes. And yeah, it was great fun.
Good stuff.
I don't know how none of us actually broke any bones because we fell off that thing so many times. One time I fell off and the engine got on my leg and burnt my leg. That hurt a lot.
Oh, I can imagine. I had
a couple nasty crashes on that, but never broke a bone.
I overturned a power motor, one of those little tractor motors once.
Really?
Sorry?
Really?
Yeah. Well, it was, I was mowing the grass in an orchard on the farm that we lived on in Northern Ireland. And it was very uneven because in the orchard they'd done various things. And I got it like that on a mountain, and over it went. Luckily, it didn't fall on top of me. I was able to get off quickly enough. Really bad. Yeah, but even so, I've had lots of narrow escapes. I once was it's well documented, I think, that I worked on the Trans-Canada Highway, and for a short period of time, I drove a small tractor. There were these huge vehicles, bulldozers and Euclid trucks and so on, and I got the little tractor. But I was expected to go up gradients like that. And one day the tractor tipped over backwards, and I had to leap for my life again. But I've always been very lucky. I always managed to get out of the way quickly enough. That's why I'm here. Okay, we'll take a look at the newspaper headlines, and they are what you would expect. They are of let's see.
Do you want me to click the buttons?
Here you go. Shall we?
Do you want me to try to do the buttons for today?
Yeah, sure. Yes, this is a new thing. Is turning into a director. I'm going to turn him into a director as well as a presenter. The more skills you have in this business nowadays, the better. We have always been self-op. But Max is keen to be a director, so we'll teach him how to be a director, and he will have sole control of the show. Oh my goodness me! No, that's a problem, isn't it? Right, okay. First of all, the Times, the Times simply has on its front page. Yes, I know. I mentioned on radio is that the back pages, or the very back page of the Mail today, still carries a picture of of the coffin. So front and back is the picture of the coffin, and the pictures dominate of the funeral in papers. So there is the coffin lying in state. But there are lots of pictures of it being carried into Westminster Abbey, and not only that, but the motorcade back to Buckingham Palace and then to Windsor Palace, Windsor Castle. And there was, at the very end of proceedings yesterday, a very private service attended only by the members of the family in St. George's Chapel, where the Queen was finally laid to rest, next to Prince Philip, her father, and her mother, in what is now known and dedicated as the George VI Chapel. Of course, most of the people who are watching would not remember George VI. I was 13, I was 12 or 13 when he died, and I can remember being called into big school, to be given the news. And the king is dead. Long live the Queen! And it was the following year. That was in 1952. The following year, 1953, the coronation took place. So many years have flown under the bridge, swept under the bridge in my time. So this is my third monarch. Then I've had King George VI, I've had Queen Elizabeth II, and now King Charles III. So interesting heads of state. Anyway, the Times carries a full wrap showcasing a powerful image of her coffin being carried into Westminster Abbey, accompanied by King Charles III. The only words on the arresting front cover are "carried to rest," carried to her rest, and there were music played to that effect. The Sun splits its front page. It has a picture of the coffin in Westminster Abbey, and also the parade down the Mall. And this picture is quite startling because we can see the thousands and thousands and thousands of people lining the route. It is quite incredible. It looks more like a football game, to be quite honest with you. And the split picture, as I say, of the chapel, which says, "God bless the Queen, God save the King." And then on the Sun, on the other picture, "We sent her victorious." And indeed, I can't disagree with that more. Agree with that more. She had an incredible reign, And in the Metro, they also split the front page. They show the long mile up to the gates of Windsor Castle, and they also show the hearse carrying her body to the final resting place in Windsor. The Daily Mirror is Queen Elizabeth II, it says, 1926 to 2022. It says nothing more. Oh, it does. It says, "Until we meet again." It shows the coffin being taken into Westminster Abbey. The Daily Express, "God rest our Queen," it says, with a similar picture of the coffin. The Daily Telegraph, "An outpouring of love." The Daily Telegraph opts to have quite a bit of text and copy on its front page, along with a picture of Charles laying the colours of the Grenadier Guards on her coffin. And it says, "A king's grief and a nation's affection, as Queen Elizabeth II is laid to rest on a day of solemnity and splendour." Also, a subheadline, the Queen's children watched intensely at the crown and sceptre, which was removed from the coffin and handed back to the state in keeping for presumably Charles's coronation. No date on that, as far as I'm aware. The Guardian, the final farewell. Once again, the picture of the coffin being carried by Grenadier Guards, I assume. And it says, unsurpassed pomp and public spectacle give way to intimacy, and Queen Elizabeth's family lay her to rest. So that the Guardian's view of the day's events, unsurpassed pomp and public spectacle. Did you watch it, Matt?
No, I didn't.
Well, I can't agree more. We do these things extremely well. But as I said earlier on the radio broadcast, the thing that impressed me was there was a mile and a half of soldiers and bands and military personnel, and I must say some civilian police as well. I was very pleased because of my strong ties to Canada to see the RCMP mounted squad leading part of the parade. It's a very fine honour for Canada and the RCMP. And I must say that in their red uniforms and their cowboy hats, or actually more like Boy Scout hats, they are a spectacle to behold. But I was impressed with the fact that there wasn't a bristling cannon or a missile or a tank in sight. And yet there was a statement of authority that the United Kingdom is still there and is still a military force. The precision and discipline of our forces, as one paper said, not a step wrong. And there wasn't a step wrong. And it was very impressive, and without actually brandishing a tank or a machine gun or whatever, which so many states do when they want to display their military might. Let's see. The end of the Elizabethan age, says the Eye, and it shows once again the coffin being pulled by the ratings, the naval ratings, along the Mall. And literally, Max, can you believe those crowds? I mean, they're quite incredible. You wouldn't get that for a winning football team.
No, you wouldn't. I mean, I was actually supposed to go. I had planned to go a second time. I planned to go for work, and then you said, don't worry about it. And then I had planned to go with my aunt, but then plans unfortunately fell through.
So, well, I mean, I think that is wonderful, but I personally can't stand crowds like that. Well, actually, as you know, nowadays, because of my Parkinson's, I can't stand. But oh dear, gone are the days that I could stand for hours watching something. I'm afraid I can't watch for more than a couple of minutes now. But those sort of occasions is I find very, very difficult. I'm too impatient. I mean, I've covered them in the past from very peculiar angles, I may say. And the fact of the matter is that I just find I'm too impatient to wait for things. Unless I got a press pass and I can get through, I don't want to know. So very selfish. But on the inside pages of the Mail, they do return to some extent to sports. They tie a lot of it in with the funeral. But one of the things that they are saying is that in Qatar, where the World Cup takes place, the World Football Cup, that is what we are doing is, can you get me a glass of water, please, Max? My Parkinson's is drying out my mouth this morning. Goodness gracious me. Wow. I'm not very with it to say. Yes, I am, but nonetheless. Anyway, the Eye says it represents the day as representing the end of the Elizabethan age, and hundreds of thousands of people lined the route from Westminster to Windsor to say thank you and goodbye. The paper reports the vast procession brought London to a standstill with spectacular military displays. After the funeral, led to an unprecedented gathering of world leaders. And
Ignore it.
Ignore everything that's going on around me. The director says ignore it and just keep talking, keep talking. Right, okay. The Daily Mail shows the inside of Westminster Cathedral with an inset of a picture of the Queen. And I believe that this picture was only released last night. No, it wasn't. The picture released last night was of the Queen walking in the glens around Balmoral. This says her final journey, and it shows the lone coffin draped in the royal standard, set before the altar, before the grand altar in Westminster Abbey. And if you've ever been to the Westminster Abbey and you've been to that altar, you know that the same feet have trod it for almost 1,000 years. It gives you a very, very strong feeling of what dynasty is about and perhaps what monarchy is about. I suppose now that we will get into, as time goes by, we will get into a debate about monarchy and so on and so forth. But let me tell you this, as I am a confirmed royalist in the sense that I am confirmed as a constitutional monarchy being the best form of government, and therefore the Queen, thanks Max, that's great, the Queen or the King, and now King Charles III, being the head of state. You will not switch me from that view. And since I'm supported by Plato and Socrates from about, damn near 2,000 years ago, I feel that I'm on strong ground. Let's see. The Financial Times is people of loving service are rare in any walk of life. Leaders of loving service are still rarer. That was the Archbishop of Canterbury in his eulogy, and he very pointedly looked at the world's leaders, and I think there are over 100 leaders of various countries in the world present, and it says it's the biggest assembly of world leaders ever, and is likely to be never seen again, and I can well believe that. I mean, Joe Biden was there, and actually, who was it that I was surprised to see? Not somebody that we are particularly friendly with, I think, but they were there paying homage to the Queen because she has been a rare being in this day and age, is a monarch who believed in a sense of duty. And I did a little thing on Mirador. I am prone to do comments once in a while, and I did a little bit on Mirador in which I pined for her going, her passing, and her sense of duty. She had an enormous sense of duty, and it's lacking in our daily life now in the main. And yet it was of her age. I knew a lady living here in Lewis. She died in her 98th year, and she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She never, ever lost her sense of duty to the community, to the country, to her fellow man. And it was a wonderful thing to experience. And the Queen embodied that. And I just wish that we would actually return to that instead of me, all the time. I think it was Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, in his speech said, one of his speeches said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And that embodied the Queen. What could she do for the country? And she was tireless in working on our behalf and for blending the country, welding the country, except for a few dissidents, none of whom have ever persuaded me they've got a better answer. But still. So the Archbishop of Canterbury had to go at a lot of world leaders. What he basically said was, if you have this sense of duty, if you govern with compassion and kindness and love, you will be remembered way in history. Whereas if you actually are there for greed and power, you'll be forgotten within minutes. And he's absolutely right. Right, okay. The state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, says the Daily Star. Her Majesty laid to rest next to her beloved Philip. And there's the inset of a photograph of her and Philip together. My guess is they would be well into their 80s when this was taken, but still a very handsome couple. And despite all the criticisms and the rumors, they were a loving couple right to the very end. I never actually met the Queen, but I did meet Prince Philip on a couple of occasions. Crusty old bugger, and actually he actually chided me because I accidentally pressed the play button of one of the old tape recorders in a burst of sound while he was in the middle of a speech. And I thought that it was so brief that he hadn't noticed. But later on, I was following them around some display or other, and he thought I'd got a bit too close with the tape recorder. And he turned on me, and he was about to give me a lambasting, and then he looked at it and said, oh, that's all right. That's the one that exploded earlier, isn't it? Nothing escaped him, believe me. So side by side, together forever. And that's basically a rundown of most of the papers this morning.
It's nice to see the Daily Star go with something that isn't absolutely ridiculous.
Yes, absolutely. Although I must confess, I do rely upon my Daily Star for my laugh, my giggle each morning. And there's always a spark of truth behind the Daily Star, even though it's lampooning people. It sort of reflects the things that some people ask. But what I do love is its little green men. It keeps on about visitors from space and so on. And yet, if you actually dig into it, it does quote some very respectable figures saying, I think the one last week was, it went on its little green men things, the men from Mars and so on. But it was actually reporting on an eminent scientist who says that he thinks that we will find intelligent life within the next 25 years. And that is interesting, and it'll make all the difference to us if we do, because we have to then start to look at things that, we keep on saying we're not alone. There are others out there. Statistically, it's got to be true, but there's never been any evidence or proof. I don't buy the UFO.
There's been some evidence and some proof, but nothing that's
there's some indication, but there's not really proof. Nobody's ever shaken hands with a little green man.
Not on camera.
No. Oh, right. Okay. You're a believer in them coming to Earth, are you?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, have you read any of Eric von Daniken's books?
Any of whose?
Eric von Daniken.
No, I haven't.
Chariot of the Gods. I interviewed Eric von Daniken. It's been in the 1970s now, and he was very popular. But what he writes is that much of our civilization comes from past visitors from space. And he actually interprets a number of things. For instance, who built the pyramids, and why is there an apparent airfield in the South American mountains? Is a very interesting man. And watch for the title, Eric von Daniken. He wrote several novels, but his first one, an outstanding one, was called The Chariot of the Gods. For instance, he says that there is evidence in the Bible where Ezekiel, a wheel within a wheel, are rolling, and that the Bible quotes people living to 140 or 150. And what we do know is that space slows time down. For instance, I think the astronauts came back a little hour or two older than when they left. But so it's an interesting topic. The Star does actually lampoon it a little bit, but they do bring sort of interesting indicators from time to time. Was that
the end?
Yeah. Okay. Let's see, what's the time now? It's 9 o'clock, and outside you can expect it a little cooler today. It's going to be 18 degrees. 18 degrees it's going to be, which is quite a bit cooler than it has been to date. But it's scattered cloud, no rain, and a light breeze. And what is it right now, Max? It's 12 degrees out there right now.
Yeah.
So slightly chilly, slightly on the chilly side from what it has been. So be careful when you go out. Don't think you're going to go out into the sunny climes that we've been in recently. Right.
It's sunny, but not warm.
Sunny, but not warm. There we go. It wasn't cold, though. I didn't feel cold this morning waiting for the bus. Did you?
Well, I did because I leave the house at 5:45.
Oh, yeah, you're a good 3/4 of an hour ahead of me in leaving the house.
What time do you leave the house?
I normally leave the house by about 6:30. And actually, for some reason, I had a very, very bad night last night. I was awake for most of the night. And then, of course, what happens is you drop asleep. So I was in one hell of a hurry this morning because I woke up 15 minutes later than I normally would. So dash, dash, dash. You know what it's like. Can't find this, can't find that, can't find the other, can't find the keys. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
I'm all right this morning because I got about 10 hours sleep.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, you were sleeping like a babe while I was being very restless. The funny thing is that, quite often when you fall asleep in front of the telly, you're only half asleep. And all sorts of strange things go through your mind. And I was wrestling with a word for, what was it, crowd. I was thinking of crowdfunding. And I was wrestling with another word for crowd. And it seemed terribly important to me that I found the synonym. I don't know that I ever did because I can't remember much more about other than lying awake fretting about it. But there we go. Those are the things that go through your mind. Right, Max, can we go to the park? Can we go to the Potter's Wheel just so I can draw a breath? Oh, so terrific. Well done. Here it is. And that symbol of Mirador television is of an architectural statue of a medieval helmet. Look at it. Oh, there we are. Well, it is a medieval helmet, a knight's helmet, and it's sited in the grounds of Lewes Priory, which in 1264, at the date of the Battle of Lewes, it was a flourishing priory. It was pulled down. The Battle of Lewes.
No.
The helmet.
Yeah.
Well, if you just put in medieval helmet, Priory Park, that should get it.
Okay.
That battle, which is unsung. Everybody knows about Magna Carta and so on and so forth. The Battle of Lewes is unsung, but it is credited with being the very first battle and very first sign of English democracy. Simon de Montfort actually, there it is. It is there. You almost had it. There you go. Yes.
There we go. I'll download the image.
Right. Okay. It was fought between Henry III and Simon de Montfort, who led dissident barons. The barons were fed up with the king continuing, despite Magna Carta, to take a lot of taxes and have big parties and enjoy himself at their expense. He said, enough is enough. And they went to war against him. And the battle took place in Lewes. well, it's just about a mile outside, actually. But some of the king's men, because the king was feasting in the priory in Lewes, it was a feast of St. Pancras, actually, which was the name of the priory. And so de Montfort sent some of his soldiers, and they broke into the priory, and they chased the king's men and terrorized the monks and so on. So that helmet sits there as a constant reminder of the Battle of Lewes, 1264, and the beginning of democracy. And really what you're seeing is, in some ways, developed though it has from those early days and those early sparks, you are seeing a manifestation of what that battle achieved. Because where the Queen lay in state in Westminster is where the first Parliament was held. It was held with undue haste. They defeated the king in May the something, and the very next day they buggered off to Westminster and formed the first Parliament. Not a Parliament as we would know it. It was only made up of barons, but nonetheless it sounded the death knell of the divine right of kings and the king's right to rule solely. It gave to the next level, if you like, of society, the right to have a say in what the laws of the country were. And of course, it's developed since then. Not as fast as you would think. We were talking the other day after the show about this hotel, which is very, very old, and it's a wonderful, wonderful place to be. Well, look at the back. Max is going to tamper with the back of it now. Look at the back. Look at the rafters. Those are all original from the 16th century when this hotel was built, the 1500s. And it is a marvelous old hotel. But the other main hotel is in a place called Shelley's. And in the past, we did not, as a citizen, directly elect our member of parliament. He was elected by town stewards. I say he because women could not stand in those days. They were elected by the town stewards. And so the two major parties, the Whigs and the Tories, would throw parties. One would throw and they were virtual orgies. One would take place here in this hotel, and the other would take place in a hotel called Shelley's, which still stands. It's boarded up at the moment after COVID, but I'm sure one day it will reopen, and an elegant hotel it is. And so the two parties would throw these orgies for the stewards in the hope that the best orgy would mean that they would vote for their man. And so that's who would go to Westminster as our MP. So one man, one vote was still a long way off, but it was creeping in that direction. And it all started with the Battle of Lewes in 1264. Young Max is trying very hard to get a picture of the helmet in Lewes. It's not working.
It is not where it says it is.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yes.
It's very confusing, isn't it? It's probably the system that I've set up. Nonetheless.
Anyway.
Never mind. Anyway, we'll play the logo again pretty soon, and you can take a look at it then. Okay. Now let's continue because I actually took a look at the back pages, and the back pages show. You just got it now.
Just as we finished talking about
well, it's all right.
Oh,
we can go back to it. There are no fixed rules on this program. We come and we go, and we invite people in off the streets. We invite them in from the hallways.
Speaking of inviting,
sorry.
Speaking of inviting, I need to send an email.
You sent an email.
I need to. Yes.
Oh yes. Okay. Right. Well, it's taking time to upload. I think everything is down to our internet connection, possibly. Never mind. We're going to really pay serious attention to that today. because it should work, and it did work, and now it's not working. Quite often, these things do need a settling in period, and we'll see whether we can settle it in. If not, we shall talk sternly to it to make sure that it goes on duty. So, getting back to the royal funeral, democracy as we know it, with a constitutional monarchy, goes back. Well, it does go back to Magna Carta, but the thing is that King John, who is a controversial figure in history, he's depicted, of course, particularly in any Robin Hood stories, as being not a very nice king. And we waited for King Richard, who was busy off the Crusades, to come back and save England. There is no evidence whatsoever that he did do so, but there is evidence that actually John was a very good administrative king. But then sometimes administrators can be very, very harsh with the budget. And so he wasn't harsh, he was lax. Have you got it?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see it. Right.
Oh, I sent the email. And then
good. And let's have a look at this, because it's really it stands about 7 feet tall, and it is a wonderful sculpture of a medieval knight's helmet. And Lewis has lots of evidence about activity in the Middle Ages. Our castle has attached to it a bowling green, where people play bowls to this very day. And that bowling green was originally the tilting ground. It was where knights practiced knocking one another off their horses with lances, for two reasons. First of all, quite often they would be bound to a lord or to some institution like the priory to act as soldiers. And they would quite often be mercenaries. So the better they were at their job, the better they stood a chance of getting work. And they would then travel to this little battle or that other battle. In the case of Sir Nicholas Pelham, he actually lent his troops to the king. And in fact, the king used them, and then on a later occasion came to Nicholas, and we're talking now about the 1400s, came to Nicholas and said, "Oi, Nick, I'd like to borrow your troops again." To which Nick said, "Pee off, you're not having them." And so Nick was thrown into the Tower of London for a little while. He's for telling the king he couldn't have his soldiers. And it was one of the our history with France and with having wars goes back many generations and centuries. And the king needed them because the French were giving him some trouble again. And Nick said no. So he got slung into the Tower of London for his troubles. But for those people who like such things, on St. Michael's, on the wall of St. Michael's Church here in Lewes, there is an effigy, if you like, of Sir Nicholas and his wife praying at the altar. And he is known locally as a hero because the French invaded Seaford, which they were wont to do. And he set off with his knights and got down there and gave them a good scrap and sent them packing. And so he was known as a local hero. He is actually still buried in that church, and so is his son. The Pelhams became a very, very well-known and respected family here over the years. They lived in Pelham House, which is still excellent and going in Lewes, for 200 uninterrupted years, which is quite something for a family. And they served with distinction as scholars, lawyers, MPs, and other professional lives from about 1600 to the last century. So a very distinguished family. And that is Sir Nicholas Pelham. Why did I tell you about that? Because I was telling you about knights who had their they sold their souls to the devil. They sold their souls to the local widow. There was no loyalty in these nights. They went along and they knocked on the door and said, "Hi, Sir Nick, I'm looking for work." Okay, you say, "Go down to the stables, collect your lance." And
Is that what the pub is named after?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So this is the pub, and around the corner is Pelham House, the house I just referred to. A beautiful house, beautiful gardens. Now it is an all-embracing wedding venue. You can go there. I believe you can now, under the new laws, get hitched there. You can have your meals there. You can actually have rent rooms there to keep some of your guests, all in all. And I have to say that the owners have kept it in reasonable nick, in reasonably good shape. But yes, the Pelhams, a lot is named after them in this town. So you can go and have a drink in the Pelham Arms and know that that's who it's named after. Nick. Old Nick. Very well. Right. Well, we were actually discussing the back pages. Do you want to actually one of them for those people who are always rabbiting on about football is that the paper has pointed out that Qatar is not going to be exactly a great venue because there will be places where it's dry, you can't get a drink, and the heat is going to be suffocating, and the premises there aren't the greatest in the world, and not only that, you've got to kick up almost 400 quid a night if you want to stay in the better hotels. So FIFA, who appointed Qatar at the height of the scandal over its kickbacks and so on, is they won it, and there was no way they were partway through building their stadiums that we could take it back. But if you're thinking of going, think 3 times. Not going to be the most pleasant of experiences. And knowing the penchant for our visiting fans to have a noggin or two, is you could end up in the pokey.
I don't know how true this is, but it has here in the back page of the Daily Mail, 4 billion across the world watch Pitch Perfect Farewell to Our Sovereign. Apparently 4 billion people watch the funeral.
On television?
Mm.
Well, I mean, with modern day streaming, I can well believe it. Believe it.
You know,
it's a lot of people, but nonetheless...
what's that almost... That's like 49% of the world watching the funeral.
No, the world is 4 billion would be about 4%.
No.
Yeah, I mean the world is several hundred billion. I'm not quite sure what
it's
the world
nice. It's 7.9, 7.8 billion people
watching.
7.8 billion people
in the world. No, there's more than that, surely.
No, well, hang on. Let me.
Check it out. World population. There we are. We're all into checking out our statistics this morning.
World population.
Aha! There you see. You see, these are the things I don't understand. I can't speak to
7.7 billion.
7.753. 2020, the world population. Right. Okay. And how many? 4 billion? Well, you're right.
4
then.
billion.
In that case, over half the world's population watched. The other half stayed in the pub.
Yeah, that's what. 50, hang on a minute. That's 50-something%.
Yes, it is.
Of the world watch the funeral.
Absolutely. If those figures are correct.
Quite impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't see it. I just can't imagine.
Well, of course, if you look at some of the Commonwealth countries, I mean, I have a little knowledge of Nigeria. I've worked there. I've been there on many occasions. I quite like the place, actually, but it is a huge landmass. I mean, it's probably one of the 3rd or 4th largest countries in the world. And it has 230 million people. Now, it is part of the Commonwealth. So if you just consider that half the population of Nigeria, which could easily be because they are very royalist in their outlook, is watched. You're up to 150 million there, aren't you?
Yeah, Nigeria is the 4th or 5th largest population in the world. So China, India, America, then I would presume Nigeria.
Yeah.
Then surprisingly Brazil.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, No, that surprises me.
It does.
I think the trouble is that it shows what we try to do is we try to bring things from outside into the world of Lewis. And sophisticated though we think we are, it's amazing that we don't know much about a lot of things. I, for instance, know virtually nothing about South America, virtually nothing. I almost went to Bogota at one point and it fell through. And I've never been onto the South American continent. So I've only got a vague idea of things that I've read and things that I've heard. And what we try to do is to look at things in perspective. So I don't know anything about Brazil at all. I am a great aficionado of Chilean wines. I read up a little bit on Chilean wines, but I know nothing about the country at all. If you ask me to name the form of governance that each country has got, I couldn't tell you. The only thing that I can remember is that in Patagonia there is quite a large Welsh presence, and I'm not quite sure why there's a Welsh presence in Patagonia, but there we are. So some of the most surprising things crop up when you start to scratch the surface. I think perhaps what I might do is we might try to find a correspondent in South America. I did have a very, very good friend when I was at Reuters, Hugo Maldonado, and we used to be the terrors of the press conferences for South Americans, because Hugo was in charge of the South American Bureau, and he would say to me, Keith, will you please come to the press conference with me? So I would trot along to the press conference, and we would play good guy, bad guy. And he would sit at one end of the table and I would sit at the other, and we wouldn't acknowledge one another. And he would ask the nice soft questions and I would ask the hard naughty questions, and we would ping pong backwards and forwards, giving the El Presidente a really bad time and trying to elicit the information that we needed. So I do have a little bit, I suppose, to do with South America. One of the things that astonished me was that I can't remember. Perhaps it was the president of Argentina, but I'm just guessing. He stayed at the Ritz, and no, he didn't. He stayed at a posher place just opposite Hyde Park. It'll come back to me in a moment. But anyway, he came out and he hired a policeman with flashing lights and so on, and an open Cadillac, and drove through London as if he was the king. On the other hand, is one of the smaller countries. Is when we went to interview him, we were told to just go straight up. The door opened, and it was the president himself. He had no aides whatsoever. So we did the interview, and then we came down, and we were just standing in the lobby discussing the interview. And he came down and said, I've got to go to this address. And he showed us the address. And he said, I'm not sure whether out of the hotel I turn right or left on Piccadilly. Which is it? And so we were able to tell him. And off he went. No escort whatsoever. So that was the short and the tall, the long and the tall, and the differences in the way that South American countries treated their president. So there we go. Now,
there's another thing from the behind the headlines here. We have all the living prime ministers went to the funeral. Tony Blair was there, Gordon Brown was there, David Cameron was there, Liz Truss was there, and Boris Johnson was there.
Theresa May?
No, Theresa May wasn't there.
She not?
No, she was.
I thought I saw her in the crowd.
No, I don't.
Well, if she's not listed there, then indeed she wasn't.
Macron was there, Joe Biden, and do you know who this is?
In fact, there was a representative from Moscow, was there not?
Possibly.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you? Kevin's come in just to make sure that the bar is working. That's his very first important job of the day, to making sure the bar is working. Is it working, Kevin?
Not quite.
Oh, well, let us know so we can help you test it. There are perks to this job. Here I keep on ranting about the perks that MPs get. There are perks of this job. You get to test the bar first thing in the morning. Oh, right. Okay.
There's a couple of people who were there. There was the First Lady of Ukraine. There was the Prince of Jordan, the King of Saudi Arabia.
Oh, yes, that's the one that surprised me a bit. The King of Saudi Arabia was there, yeah.
Yeah, there was lots and lots of important.
Up to 100 world leaders, I believe, were there.
We have a whole page here on Prince Andrew.
And I believe that they had an informal summit, an informal get-together. Hey, chaps, let's discuss the state of the world. Whoa. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall for that one.
Okay.
I don't think they said where it was, because can you imagine is any terrorist saying, God, I got 100 of them all in one place. All I got to do is to lob a bomb in there.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like how many world leaders?
100.
Over 100 world leaders there. So many important people, kings, queens, all sorts. But that seemed like the perfect place to have.
Yes, and yet, strangely enough, is watching the television, I thought that the security was very low key. I couldn't spot it.
So did I. There wasn't. I haven't seen any security specifically.
Yeah, and I mean, Joe Biden and his wife went into Westminster Abbey totally unescorted. So obviously the guys from the CIA had checked everything out, were satisfied that everything that could be done was being done. Yeah. An interesting day, to say the least. Yeah.
And
what other little tidbits have you got there?
Very interesting thing here is barred from uniform and saluting. Prince Andrew was not allowed to salute, and he was not allowed to wear the uniform.
So he is still in the bad books of his brother.
Neither was Harry. Harry's not in the uniform.
No, Harry was gave up his titles, if you recall.
Yeah.
There was some suggestion that he might get them back in time, but obviously not. And it could be that his wife has said no. I mean, she wears the trousers in the family, and it could be she said, look, we made a fuss in Hollywood about our Republican credentials and so on and so forth. Well, anti-royal credentials, if you like.
Imagine being a Republican royal.
Yes.
What a ridiculous thing to be.
What else have you got in there? Incidentally,
just lots of pictures of large crowds.
Yes, I did mention. Because over a period of the Queen has been was monarch for 70 years. I was a journalist for damn near 60, and it's amazing where you found yourself going over those 60 years. And I found myself in the Palace of Westminster, in Westminster Hall, numerous times. And every time that I walked through that hall, I got the prickles in the back of my neck standing up, because it's where King Charles I was sentenced to death. I think Queen Mary was tried. There were many big occasions that took place in that hall, and they are seeped in the walls. And it was the first of the Houses of Parliament to be it wasn't even a House of Parliament, but it was the first of the complex, if you like, to be built. And it was built about 1080, 1090, something like that.
Here's what
very,
you were
very old.
Talking about the Canadian,
the RCMP in their finery, leading the way on their horses. Yeah, they don't actually use horses much anymore. They're motorized like everybody else, but they have been sensible enough to keep the
tradition.
Yes, and they have a musical ride, which they do at horse shows and fairs and things, and it is quite splendid. I think there are about a dozen or so of them, and they prefer various maneuvers that, if they get it wrong, is they knock one another out of the saddle. So it's quite impressive.
That's interesting. Kate Williams' wife was wearing Princess Diana's jewelry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you know, I actually, it is one of the things that passes fleetingly through your mind is I looked at Kate and I thought, gosh, she reminds me so much of Diana. in the way she dresses and so on, except, of course, that she's played the role of queen in waiting perfectly. But I often wonder, what would the two of them made of each other? And I think they would have probably been very good friends. They look as if they have the same temperament. The only thing is that Diana was not a survivor. She was too sensitive. Where was she from? From England. She was English. She was part of the Spencer family. Her brother Earl Spencer was at this funeral. I think it was Buckinghamshire or something like that.
Who was the Spencer family?
Sorry?
Who was the Spencer family?
Well, Shan Kidd, I think, was the other half of the family. They're a very, very old family, rooted in English aristocracy, if you like. I mean, Diana was supposedly a commoner, but in fact, her family were at the top end of the privileged few, as it were. And I must say that the Grenadier Guards, is the Grenadier Guards, with their red uniforms and so on, very impressive, very impressive. Incidentally, one just very brief business note is that the London Metals Exchange, which was the last one to end open cry trading. Open cry trading was those marvelous pictures you saw where they're all yelling at one another and making hand signals and so on and so forth. That was the last, one of the last, to give up that open cry trading. In my time at Reuters, it was still doing open cry, so that's not that long ago, and they didn't close, and they've come in for a heck of a lot of stick, but in some ways, since the metal exchange would be dealing in some commodities that would be tied up with the war in Ukraine, with Moscow and so on, is I am slightly not amazed that it didn't close its doors. It could not afford probably to await on even the most important affair of state. Right, okay. Max, also in the next break, whatever we decide to do, you're the director, you tell me what we're going to do. But perhaps you would also try to get hold of Jane Watkins, send an invitation to her. It's possible that Jane may be standing by as well.
So I have approval ratings from YouGov on the royal family. Most approval is obviously the Queen at 75% of the country approve of her job. And Prince in second to last place for the royal family approval rating is Meghan Markle at 25%. And in the last place, obviously, Prince Andrew at 11.
People are not forgiving him.
They're obviously not. He's a child molester.
Well, be careful what you say, but I know what you're talking about. Shall I say to you, as I'm always very careful about condemnation. Yes, I understand what you're saying, but you know, how many people who would get excited about that, get excited about the fact that young Nigerian girls of 9 and 10 are married off to old chieftains and probably ending in their death before they're 20. And we don't seem to get excited about that. Now, okay, that is...
Yeah, because that's Africa, and Africa is a terrible place.
Well,
but this is in our own country.
No, hang on. Have you been to Africa?
It's an educated guess.
Well, I've been to Africa. I've been to 2 countries in Africa. And I've dealt very closely with the third. And once again, you have to be careful what you read and what you hear. Actually, some of these countries are quite sophisticated. The only thing is, you know, is the bigger the country, the more that you've got people who are not educated and actually think in very strange ways. I would give you the prime example as being the United States. If you go to Boston, Washington, or New York, you'll find a very, very sophisticated American who will match you thought for thought, idea for idea. You go into, say, Arkansas or some of the Tennessee or some of the Deep South, and you will say, "My God, are these people educated?" I mean, so that's America. Africa is much the same. If you go to Abuja or Lagos or Accra in Ghana, Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, what you'll find is a very educated class. It's because they're such huge countries that when you get out into the sticks, as it were, that you find that the civilities of life as we understand them are not known. So are we right to condemn Nigeria or big African countries and not condemn the United States? The same sort of thing.
No, I don't quite understand the point you're trying to make. What I'm saying is that's over there. They're not great countries. I don't really care about Africa. Not that much. But obviously, this is here. This is Prince Andrew. This is this country. This is a first world.
No, I'm not. I wasn't actually questioning that. You said Africa was a bad place, or worse to that effect. I'm just pointing out that all even most civilized countries have got bad places.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. We have Birmingham.
oh my God. I hope the Birmingham people aren't watching that. I actually was born not far from Birmingham. But the thing is, we've just held a very successful Commonwealth Games there. And people say that it's a changed city. I can well believe it. Anyway, we won't go too far down this route. But the point is that they're good and bad everywhere. Your point about Andrew, I understand. I just also the other thing that worries me a great deal is that what in 1950s Britain you would do a lot more with the male-female relationship than now you can possibly get away with. The big problem is that what we do is we set up our courts and we judge people on that era. If we did that, and if we went back far enough, we would come to the conclusion that there was never one safe male in the entire country for about 500 years. So it's just a question of putting it into context.
Which is why when it comes to speech, we shouldn't judge people on jokes they told like 10, 20 years ago, because a lot more was tolerated.
Yeah. You don't tell them today, but you don't judge people. And
people do judge them.
Yes, they do. There is one nice channel that I quite like on television called Talking Pictures, and it shows movies from 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. And they put up a little thing saying, there are attitudes and words and so on and so forth used in this movie that were reflective of the time. And so shouldn't be taken
a warning label on them.
Yeah, which is fair enough, I think. No, why? No.
Because it starts with that, and then it snowballs into, we'll do it now for modern movies. You may be offended.
Oh, you mean putting it? Well, actually, with some of the things that I see, because I have no isms at all. Some of the things I see in modern movies is it wouldn't surprise me if the way that life is moving is in 20 years' time or 30 years' time, when some movies that we consider perfectly acceptable today aren't given the same caution in 20 years' time. So these movies are 100 years old. Well, not 100 years old, not quite 75 years old, some of them. And
it's not even as a lot of this old speak, so to say, isn't even that long ago. Like, imagine saying today, right? Men and women are biologically different. Men cannot give birth. We can get banned for saying that, as an example. We can get banned for saying that. Imagine saying that 10 years ago. No one would have blinked an eye. Everyone would have been like, why are you saying that? That doesn't even...
No. And
why would anyone be questioning that?
People of my generation don't blink an eye anyway. I mean, to us, it's perfectly obvious. For a new generation, it's not. Yeah, I just think that they have very strange blinkers on their eyes, but still, there we go. That's the difference. But the intolerance in society is that we don't actually balance our thoughts. We don't say people of 70 are likely to think this way, and people of 20 are likely to think this way. The only place that I know really that meets it head on is this television station, where you and I and you and Max, you and Stuart, and even you and Sybil have a go at each other. And in fact, Stuart and I have a go at each other, and Sybil and I have a go at each other. And we invite a lot of other people in who are perfectly prepared to debate. But so many people are afraid of saying things nowadays. Now, the moment you have a climate of fear in any society, then you're on the downward slope. It doesn't matter what you're afraid of. If you have to walk out of your house and be afraid, and people are afraid to say things, it is quite remarkable, quite remarkable. And those same people will say, oh, yes, well, we have freedom of speech. Bullshit. And it's time that we actually started to take a long, hard look at these things.
Well, one day,
hey, what is freedom of speech?
One day I'll probably go into what happened when I was younger, because not that much younger, 3 years ago, 4 years ago now. Yeah, late 2018, beginning of 2019. I was put under police investigation, and they came to, quote, check my thinking.
Oh, God.
That's serious.
Yeah, I wish you'd have been on here then.
Yeah.
You could have reported that.
Yeah, it's probably too late now, but yeah.
Oh, it's not too late. You're mentioning that this happened.
Yeah.
Would it happen? Here we are, just having this very serious discussion because Kevin has given me the day's first. And now, if you think that I'm a secret drinker, I'm not. I am doing this in the interest of the hotel of science, and to help Kevin with his job, right? Okay, Here we go. Not bad. Not
Finish
bad.
it off then.
Yes. Very well. Just so you know, it will sit here and I will sip at it. I am not going to gulp it down.
Like I
Well,
would.
there's a gulp.
Yeah, not like I would.
You can have a sip if you wish.
Yeah, I'll try some.
There we are, drinking before 10 o'clock on this show. Oh, dearie me. I think we'd better take a break, Mr. Director, if you've got something that we can break to, just for 5 minutes or 4 minutes, so just to catch your breath. I'm glad that the funeral is raising a few issues this morning. It's very nice to feel sorry for the loss of our monarch and to admire the pomp and circumstance. That doesn't mean to say that serious issues in our society and our life and indeed our world have gone away. They haven't.
Why has this done this again? Okay, there we go. We're back. Okay, I don't think we've ever played this. Corrupt Fire. Oh, okay, well, let's see what this is.
Oh, that's Corrupt Fire. It says, but try it. It's my adventures with a grizzly bear in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only 18 when I set off for Canada. It was a long way to go. It goes on 5,000 to 6,000 miles, all on my own and a real adventure. And the first year was pretty good. I spent the 2 semesters as required at the university, and then got a job for the summer. And I went out into the Rocky Mountains between 2 small communities, at least in those days they were small communities, called Revelstoke and Golden. Wild, it was wild. And my job was to help build the Trans-Canada Highway between those 2 points, because there was no road there. The only way in was by rail, a train that had been built many, many years, almost a century before. Well, not the train itself, but the tracks. And I remember on that first journey, getting off the train at a place called Stony Creek. I thought I was at the ends of the earth. It was raining. There was mud and streams flowing down the mountainside. There was nobody there. And there I stood beside the track, watching my safe train, which only came once a week, disappear into the mountainside. You've no idea how you feel that first few days. But it was very fortuitous because I learned a number of things in that space of 2 or 3 months that I worked in the Rocky Mountains, I still got an English haircut. On the odd occasion, I wore my school blazer with the mitre on. It's English. I was English in a Canadian setting. And boy, didn't they know it. And I would go into the bunkhouse, and on one occasion, I reached for the gravy drug. And because the chap had a very heavy accent who was sitting opposite to me and said, "That's not gravy," I didn't understand. So I smiled at him and poured the gravy all over this wonderful meal, only to find out that it was chocolate sauce. Chocolate sauce sitting on the table when in fact you've got potatoes and meat in front of you. Oh, that was a learning curve. And the same chap said a little later, you know, he said to one of his companions, "You know, you sure can tell that young fellow is English, can't you?" And I thought, "Well, yeah, I suppose you can." And he said, "Why do you say that?" He said, "Because he eats his pie with a spoon." Canadians always eat with a fork. What a giveaway. Never mind the blazer, never mind the haircut. But it was that summer that my actual athletic prowess really came out. Because I broke the half-mile record and the high jump record within minutes of each other. And I also, not sure it was a record, but did pretty well in the weightlifting department. That was a few days later. But first of all, was the half-mile record. When you go to work in these camps, there's not much to do. You work, you sleep, you eat, and after a month or two, you get out and you pick up your check. Very nice it is too. But on a Sunday, no television, no limited books, no newspapers. They would probably come midweek. So you just hung around, and it was very boring. Understanding that and needing work done, the camp bosses would say, "Would you like to earn some more money?" As a university student, wow, would I like to earn some more money? And you got time and a half for working on a Sunday. It's rather nice. So this particular Sunday, I was deputed to go up the mountainside and to start digging little potholes to see whether we could hit gravel, stones that they could use to lay on the bed of the road which we were building. So off I trotted, hey-ho, shovel slung over my shoulder, clambered up the mountainside, found a suitable place to start to dig holes, and started to dig away. After a little while, I heard some stones being loosened up on the railway track. I paid no attention at all, because there was a railway gang that lived, yes, they stayed up in a little hut on the railway site. And they, like us, had nothing to do on a Sunday, so they would earn some extra money going out, testing the track, and that sort of thing. That's who I thought it was. I continued to merrily dig away at my hole, hoping that I would hit gravel pretty soon. It was back-breaking work. And then I looked up to see a huge grizzly bear coming down the mountainside, his beady eyes fixed on me. I hadn't had lunch yet. He was determined to have his lunch, and I was it. I threw the spade down, and I took off down the mountainside. Now I was dressed in work clothes. I had big work boots on. They came way up past my ankles. They got thick soles. They were leather. They were toe-capped with hard stuff, so that if you dropped anything on them, you wouldn't crush your feet. And I took off down the mountainside at a great rate of knots. The spring runoff was still there. Water was still cascading down the mountain. So the mud must have been, good 2 or 3 feet deep at some stages. I managed to avoid disappearing into the mud altogether. But at the side of the track, down the mountain I went, lickety-split, determined that this grizzly was not going to have me for lunch that particular day. I came around a bend in the track, and there was a D9 Caterpillar tractor. Now, if you've never been on a construction site and you've never seen a D9 Caterpillar tractor, they are huge. They are huge. And they stand about a story and a half. So if you look at a small house and try to guess that you're looking at just below the bedroom window, that's about the height 7, 8 feet. The driver said that I did not touch his vehicle. I did not touch the bulldozer in leaping into the seat beside him and clutching him, trembling with fear that this grizzly was going to come around and find that the D9 Caterpillar tractor was no obstacle whatsoever, and he would have double lunch. He'd have both of us.
Good morning, Jane. I escaped from a bear to the tender mercies of Jane Watkins from Hastings. How are you, darling?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Did you watch lots of Funeral yesterday?
Yes, I'm funeraled out.
Yes.
Every yes, I ended up watching Paddington because I thought, oh, well, it's a bit of a change from Paddington 2.
Oh, well, the Queen would have approved of that, I think.
I think we put it on in her honour, actually. Yeah, I went to Hastings. I went to Alexandra Park because Hastings Borough Council put on a big screen. So I wasn't really feeling emotional until I got there. I just got there at the end of the service and everyone was standing. And then I just kind of did get absorbed in the emotion of it all. And actually to see it on a big screen, I decided not to go to London, but actually gives you more sense of being there than my small TV at home. So it was good to sit, and it was a lovely day, and had a book of condolences, so I signed the book, and they showed the first part. They switched it off when the hearse went to Windsor, but
right,
yeah,
I mean that was actually quite boring, just following the hearse. I actually switched off before that as well. Just as a side note, I was privileged on one occasion to actually go to Evensong in Westminster Abbey, and because of the gentleman that invited me, sit in the choir stalls. And I'll tell you, just that simple service in the evening in Westminster Abbey brings the prickles to the back of your neck. It is quite a remarkable experience. So can you imagine being at something like yesterday?
I know. I mean, I did think a few times, oh, I should have gone. But I've been to a few of the Jubilee things, and you're 10, 12 people back. You can't see much, but I think it would have been a great spectacle. I mean, it was amazing, amazing parade, amazing tribute to her. Anyway, I did go on Wednesday to try and get into the queue, so I did go up the first day.
Right. How long was the queue when you joined it?
Well, on the train up, it was saying 30 hours the first day on the Wednesday, but starting at 5. And I thought, well, I'll get there. Merrily thought, oh, I'll get there for 5. But people have been queuing all afternoon. So I got to the end of the queue, and then I said, right, where are the wristbands? I said, oh, no, you've got to join another queue to get a wristband. So I walked and walked and walked. It was more, I think it was the 5 miles long. And then I thought, well, it was probably 5:30, 6, and I thought, well, then the one policeman said to me, oh no, it's 10 hours. It's not as long as it's saying on the news. It's about 10 hours, which I should have stuck it out. But all I kept thinking was, how am I going to get home at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, absolutely.
For the first train, so I came home. So I do regret that a little bit. I thought I should have. I'm not, because I'm so impatient, really, as a person. I kind of thought, oh no, 10 hours. But anyway,
I would have been with you. I would have abandoned ship long before that, Jane. So I don't think anybody would blame you. Actually, on these occasions, if you're not a member of the press, you really don't see much at all.
No, well, this is the thing.
Watching people file through they all had about 30 seconds to nod at the the
Well, I
hearse?
went to the Queen Mother's. I went with my ex-boyfriend at the Queen Mother's Lion State in 2002, and he had the bright idea. So right, we'll go up on the motorbike, and we'll go really late. We'll go at midnight. So we went at midnight, and actually, we kind of walked. I mean, she probably wasn't as popular, in terms of the volume of people going, but I remember we just sort of walked. Well, we did queue a little bit, but we walked sort of straight through. But they did say to us you weren't allowed to look at the coffin. You just had to walk straight.
What?
Not to. Oh yeah, you weren't allowed to turn at that point and look at her. So we walked sort of. We did walk through Westminster Hall. So I have done it, with her. So
Yeah. What was the point?
yeah, I mean, not like now with the Queen. Was it? I can't remember. It wasn't an open coffin with the Queen Mother. Maybe 20 years ago things were a bit different, but they just said just walk straight through, don't turn your head.
Yeah. And I suppose was that in the Westminster Hall as well?
Yeah, it was in the Westminster Hall. Yes.
Yeah. Well, they're notorious in that hall for lopping people's heads off. There have been quite some famous trials there. Charles I. Queen Mary, a number of people. In fact, I think Queen Elizabeth I was actually hauled before a court there at one stage. So you were probably in paying attention to what they said. You were probably wise. You kept your head.
That's it. I kept my head. While all around others are losing theirs. Yes.
Tell me then, generally speaking, what was your impression of the environment? Is that sort of crowd and that sort of occasion generates an atmosphere which is sometimes difficult to describe. But you're a professional broadcaster. Can you give us some feeling of what it was like?
In the queue, Wednesday when I went to the queue, I think it was, like everyone was saying, with the British queue. But I mean, you had to queue. There was there's no other way they'd have done it. You couldn't be like another nation like piling in. I mean, it had to be some semblance of order. It was very organised. So all along a lot of the river bank, there were portaloos, there were huts, people selling coffee and tea, and a lot of the bars, Southwark, were open. So, and I think the whole point of the wristband was to say that if you came out of the queue, if you wanted to use the toilets or something like that, get a coffee, then you wouldn't lose your place. So it was very ordered. There were a lot of police around. I mean, I spoke to 2 police swimming to say, where's the end of this queue? I got this train to Waterloo East. And they were very helpful, I mean, it wasn't around the queue, it was a bit chaotic, but I mean, it was very ordered. Uh-huh. I mean, I didn't actually speak to anybody in the queue other than to say, where's the end of it? I wasn't expecting to walk 5 miles naively on the first day, thinking that I thought, well, the thing was, one chap said to me that people had been queuing, from early in the day. So I didn't really preempt that. I kind of thought, well, they said the queuing starts on 5 o'clock on Wednesday. I'll be there for 5 o'clock on Wednesday, but really I should have gone a lot earlier, and then I would have had to get in with a chance. So it was very ordered, organised, and plenty of facilities for people. So,
what drove you to go?
That's an interesting question. Well, I suppose, like a lot of people say, it's a moment in history, isn't it? I mean, I kind of like the tradition of the monarchy in Britain. I couldn't imagine the United Kingdom without a monarchy, although these days a lot of people probably are not as interested. We've got a lot of people living here from other countries, different religions. They're not so engaged in it. I think I like the tradition. I think, I like being British. I like being part of Great Britain. And somebody said yesterday that the British put on a good display, which they did do. But it kind of makes you kind of proud. I think the Queen, and like a lot of people, she's been a monarch for a very long time.
Yeah,
I'm not sure now, moving forward, it will have this, with Prince Charles and things, it will have the same. Well, not hold, but people will be as interested, perhaps. I'm not sure.
Do you know that there are over 60 monarchies in the world, and that we have 6 close neighbours which are, like ourselves, constitutional monarchies,
Yeah.
and they are some of the most stable countries in the world. I quote to you Norway, Sweden,
Yeah.
Denmark,
Denmark.
the Netherlands, and of course, a switch back to a constitutional monarchy, Spain.
Yeah.
So we do have an excellent form of government. The other thing is, that people say, "Oh, look at all the cost of it." Actually, we come 7th in the league table of how expensive it is to keep a president. And as I recall, one of the top of the list is France.
Well, I think that came to light with the Royal Yacht. She got rid of a lot of her chart, the train. She got rid of the yacht, didn't she? Because at some point people were complaining about that. But and sometimes now they do occasionally use regular aircraft. I think whether Charles will slim it down a bit in terms of cost, I'd imagine he probably will. And I think the thing about the Queen as well, she kept quiet, about things. She was very correct at not being out. Whereas Charles, in his time, has been a bit more outspoken. I mean, he's either going to have to curb some of his opinions. I don't, because that's not what the crown is about. The monarchy is about.
He's the head of state now, and in a constitutional monarchy, of course, is while he continues to have authority, but he does not have power,
Right.
and that's the blend that he's got to find. But I'm very interested in the fact that you took the trouble. And how do you frequently visit London?
Not so much now. I mean, for me as well, what I found was the crowds. Like it was when you live in a quieter, smaller place. Getting to Waterloo and Waterloo East, it was a regular working day, so it was really busy. Although I lived in London, I lived in London for years. It was busy. And everything really frenetic in Waterloo East Station. Everyone's dashing, and then I went out of one exit, and I thought I'm the wrong side. There's 6 exits out of Waterloo Station, and then I had to ask somebody, so I need to go out of exit 5 to get to the embankment where the big wheel is.
Right.
Yeah, it's busy. I mean, it's exciting, but I think it's exciting. Years ago, I think it was exciting driving around London and going to things, but now it seems like quite hard work.
Yes. It
and coming home, the train was packed, and I thought I've forgotten about all this with COVID.
Well, I have to say that Brexit, not Brexit, lockdown stopped my forays to London, and I've only been there twice, I think, in the last 2 years. And just a few years ago, I was there up every day. So our tastes change. But what I found was that I was up there in early lockdown, and suddenly, where I was used to a lot of traffic, I could get into a taxi, and I could be from Pall Mall to Victoria Station in something like 3.5 minutes. It was incredible.
Well, yesterday seemed like lockdown, didn't it? I opened the door, walked to the park with my little portable chair. I was dead because my road's quite busy where I live, and it was absolutely. You could hear a pin drop. There's nobody around, and as I walked down the road because the park's around the corner, I could hear TVs on in people's houses. Where the windows were open because it's quite a hot day. It's a bit like lockdown all over again. There's nobody around. Until I got to the park, and then obviously there was the mayor was at the park, and they had a book of condolences which I signed as well. So and South East News were there.
Is there any change this past week in life in Hastings, or did it go on as normal?
Well, I think yesterday, it came to a standstill. I mean, a friend of mine put something on social media he was doing. I said, I can't believe you're doing that today, the day of the funeral. But Yeah, it came. I would say it came to a pretty. Somebody else put a message saying they were on the seafront having a coffee, and there was absolutely nobody around. So even if people weren't watching, maybe they were taking advantage. It was nice to have another bank holiday. People maybe
Yes.
home doing their stuff. Catching up with whatever, whether they were watching it or not.
Everything, absolutely everything closed. There was nothing to do.
Really, yeah.
There was nothing. I mean, shops weren't open really. Not many of
No,
them. Pubs
that's
weren't
correct.
open in my village.
Yeah, and I spoke to somebody who worked for Tesco, so they were closing till 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Even the Tesco Express was closing, and then reopening at 5 if people wanted.
Even though they're 24 hours.
Yeah, but I think that's it's fair enough, isn't it? Because actually, retail staff, they always have to work.
Yes.
Whenever, so
Yeah.
keep going. So yeah, I think it was a good mark of respect, whether people were interested in it or not.
Well, I created a little bit of diversion in my apartment block because the way that I clean a frying pan is by putting water in it and then putting it back on the stove and boiling it for a while so I can scrape the stuff off. And I forgot about it. And suddenly it was filled with smoke and the fire alarm went off. Got everybody chasing around. I wasn't the most popular person, but at least I got them working.
Well, I did a similar thing. I thought I went to the park and I came back and thought I'll watch the Windsor Park at home I'll have a bacon and egg sandwich roll, put the bacon on, and I started watching the programme and I thought, oh crikey, it was completely burnt, and the same, I had smoke in the kitchen. I had to open I thought, oh no, at least my smoke detector didn't go off, but I mean it was really smoky in the kitchen. Yeah.
Hey, just a moment, Kevin. Quite splendid today. You did a splendid job. Kevin is looks after the bar, gets it ready for the day, and I become his official taste. This is James, who's our correspondent from Hastings. This is Kevin, who keeps us making sure that we do the tastings each day and get it going.
What, beer tasting?
So that Jane can see you.
Yeah, that's real ale. What's the tasting? Real ale, is it? Or
it's Amstels.
All right. Is it busy? Are you busy in the pub?
Not at the moment. It's quite quiet, which is good.
Well, we actually dominate proceedings till about 11 o'clock. But by the same token, is that Kevin sometimes helps us. He tips us off and says, the king of so and so is staying in the hotel. And we're able to pull him in. But it's about 11:30 before people start to come into this bar.
Yeah.
It's quite a good place to be, isn't it? In the pub. It's quite a good place to be.
Yeah.
Listen, Jane, I can't tell you, in all the places that I've worked, and I worked in many as a broadcaster and a journalist, this is the best place that I've ever been in. I get given a beer tasting exercise in the morning. They are all lovely people. They've all got a smile on their face. They look after me. In some instances, dear Jane, who's on holiday, your namesake, actually puts out on my light and the extension cord and all sorts of things for me.
Crack on.
Okay. Well, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah. So very, very typical of the people that we work with here. It's really great. And of course, we hope that as we develop, we'll get you down here at least one day a week. And we just got to make enough money to pay you, but we're working on that. So during last week, in the build-up, because there was lots going on, but did life go on much the same as normal in Hastings?
Yeah, I think so. I think yes, I think probably the death, the announcement of her death was a bit of a shock. I mean, it was a shock to me. I mean, kind of, especially seeing that she'd met the Liz Truss the day before. I mean, obviously looking quite frail, and then suddenly an announcement to say that she'd passed away. So I think people were quite
had a
shocked.
rough first week.
Yeah.
I mean, she became Prime Minister on Monday. Prime Minister's questions on Tuesday. Queen dies on Wednesday. She meets the King on Thursday. I mean, I
know. Must be mind blowing for her. I mean, extraordinary.
It does make an interesting situation, though, is that we start off with a new Prime Minister and a new King all in 1 week. the same
No,
week.
no.
Yeah.
No. It's a
Well,
bit
I think-
weird. It is weird. I mean, it's the same as, I don't know, is it the same as losing a family member? You know, it's awful death, isn't it? You know, 1 minute somebody's there
And they're not. Yeah.
and they're not, and everything that's important to them and, you know, all their opinions and their rules and regulations suddenly just gone.
Yes. You're
You know,
quite right. I mean, it is. It's a sharp shock. What did you want to ask, Kevin? Sorry, Max.
Max.
I don't remember what I was going to say now.
It'll come back to you.
About Liz Truss is, you know, the quick changes for everybody, and I think what was sad, I mean, like King Charles, I should say, has been all over the place, and I thought, gosh, you know, they still need time to grieve like a regular family, and you know, he had one day off, didn't he, on Friday, and he was off to Wales and Ireland and all over the place. I thought, gosh.
Yeah.
He had to go meet all the new. He had to go meet all the heads of the UK.
I did.
This has probably been planned for some months, if not years.
Oh,
I did have to smile yesterday because when they left the church in Windsor, you know, like some members of the royal family were walking up, like Princess Anne's children, because she didn't want them to have royal status. They walked up. But Harry and Meghan got into a chauffeur car. And I thought, well, they don't have royal status now. How come they had a car? I mean, I know that the Tyndalls, you know, Princess Anne's daughters and son, she didn't want them.
Nobody walks in Hollywood, darling.
No, I know. And I had to always smile because William and Kate, whenever they get in a car,
All right, so I have this here from the Daily Mail. Prince Andrew was banned from his uniform and saluting. He wasn't allowed to wear the uniform, wasn't allowed to salute. And neither was Harry. Harry
wore his uniform in the line of state, but he wasn't allowed to wear it yesterday.
Yeah, he wasn't allowed to wear it yesterday.
I think it's a shame because they've served in the military. I think they have served in the military. He did 2 tours in Afghanistan, but you know, they're not royal. Anyway, they got into a car, and it did make me smile because whenever William and Catherine get in a car, William always gets in first, and yet with Harry and Meghan, Meghan got into the car first. Yeah. And then you can see Harry's face. He went, oof, as he got into the car. That is if
Meghan's the boss in that relationship.
Thank goodness that's over. You know, like thank goodness it's over. I've got the impression, but
yeah. But I suspect that as William is the king in waiting, is that you know the protocol is that he gets into the car first anyway.
Right, yes, I did wonder if it was etiquette. Yeah, it was.
I would have thought so. Yeah,
he's not outwardly. I mean, Meghan's always holding Harry's hand, whether it's insecurity on her or paranoia on her part. Whereas William and Kate, you know, they walk separately again, royal protocol, but. So the latest news is there's a rift between Harry and Meghan. I would think that Harry felt he must feel a bit regretful because they came over and then they went to Germany. They didn't go and see the Queen. I would imagine he'd feel bad that he didn't go up to see her.
Yeah,
you know that's.
I mean, in some ways, he has not turned out to be a very strong character when it comes to his wife. But she is a very, very dominant woman. And, you know, I mean, I was lucky. I wasn't married to an overly dominant woman, but I sometimes wonder, you know, if I had been, if she said boo, whether I would have jumped. So I have a certain amount of sympathy for him.
Relationships, yeah, I know. And I think that over here, she feels like a fish out of water. And he grown up with a royal family. He is a member of the royal family. And I think he might feel... I also, if he came back, he'd come back, you know, a sense of duty to his father and sort of whether there's any regret on his part. But I think, like you say, Meghan is, well, I've got my own opinions about Meghan, but I think
everyone has their own opinions about
Meghan.
Do you like her or not?
I'm not a fan, no, at all.
No, you know what? I have never met anyone who likes Meghan Markle.
Well, my one friend does. She kept saying, "Oh, she's such a princess," and she's. Oh, I said, "Are you looking at her through rose-coloured spectacles? Oh, she's done so much. You know, she's achieved so much."
Done what?
But I mean,
married a prince.
okay, she's been to university like a lot of us. She's, she has achieved some things. But I think what upset me was she had, they wear pearls for mourning, which we did when my mother died, only because she also always wore pearls. But Meghan had the pearl earrings that the Queen gave her, £25,000, and the jewellery that she was given when she got married from the Queen. And yet all that, interview with Oprah Winfrey running down the monarchy and the Queen, I thought, I don't know, just felt really terrible. I just thought, how can you stand there? How could you even attend? How could you even be there with all that you've criticised the Queen? And
Max pointed out that there's a story, I think, in the Mail that Kate actually wore some jewellery that belonged to Diana.
Yeah, she had. Yeah, she did.
She wore a bracelet that belonged to Diana and a necklace that belonged to the Queen.
I actually, it gave rise to me is I actually watched Kate quite carefully, and in some ways she reminds me of Diana. Perhaps not the same sensitivity. She's been tougher in getting used to royal life, but nonetheless there are some similarities. And I wonder what the two of them would have been like if they'd have met.
Diana, yeah,
Diana and Kate.
I think Diana was a good person. I think she had she had a tough time with Charles, I guess. I mean, nobody wants to live through an affair, someone else having an affair, and would have been, especially in public life. She didn't have.
How many people do you think remember that the Queen Consort was the third party in that?
I know exactly, and I think that's why a lot of people, people have the same feeling for Camilla. At the end of the day, if you look back, they should have got married they should have got married in the first instance, really, when they were young, Charles and Camilla, shouldn't they? But obviously, protocol, it was, it didn't happen. But, that interview with King Charles now, when they said, did he actually love Diana? I'm not sure that he did. I think it was duty. He married her, Prince Philip pushed him to marry her. They wanted heirs to the throne, didn't they?
Yes, and also, of course, in that era, she was a pretty good-looking lady.
Yeah. And
it was, I think that the crown were coming out of, the royals were coming out of you marry any ugly old woman, if I put it that way. You need a bit of a trophy girl on your arm. I think it's
quite hard. It's quite hard for them to be with commoners. They really would rather somebody from a royal background, or Diana has aristocratic background, really.
Yes.
Whereas, I mean, Kate, it hasn't had that background, so I think she has grown into the role. But I think a lot of it's steered by her mother. I feel her mother pushes her to, steered her to be.
I'm sure to even get into that circle, you need to be, sort of doors opened and being pushed and so on and so forth. Because they do go through an array of people, don't they?
I think it must be really hard for Kate as well. A bit like Sophie. I mean, Sophie and Edward, you don't hear much. I think they're a really good couple, Edward and Sophie. And Sophie was very close to Queen. I think they almost should be the monarchs, because she's another one. She had her own company, didn't she? Did she have a publishing company?
I think they still do, don't they? A film company or a PR company, I think.
Yeah, PR. Yeah, Sophie had a PR company. Again, a commoner, but they keep themselves in the background a bit, but they do a lot of work. And I like Sophie. I think Sophie's another one who's has integrity. And
yes, actually, I think the best one of all is Princess Anne's husband.
Yeah, you never hear anything from him.
He plays his role, his duty, very, very well. In fact, I don't know that I heard his name mentioned once during the funeral proceedings.
No, other than he was there. No.
It's Timothy.
I said I don't even know his name.
Yeah, Timothy. Tim, is it? Yeah, he's.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. He plays a very, very good role. Because am I wrong in thinking that she had a previous husband?
Yes, because her children are from another. Who was his name? Captain. Well, Captain
Yeah.
Phillips, wasn't it? No,
Yes, that's right, Mark Phillips.
Mark Phillips. Yeah. So his children, her children are his, not her second husband. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they separated. Yeah. You don't hear much about. I mean, you hear about Zara because she was in the Olympics. She went to Gordonson School, of course, as well. And
well, there you are. You followed the
Yeah.
footsteps of the great and the good.
Gordonson School, where I work in the summer in Scotland.
Where Prince Charles went to school, yeah.
Where Prince Charles went as well. But
Yes.
in fact, it was on the news the other day that
You were on the news for going to Gordonson?
Pardon?
You were on the news for going to Gordonson?
No, the school was on the news.
But I'm secretly told, Jane, that you carved your initials into a desk, the same desk that Charles carved his initials into.
No, I didn't. No, they don't have those old wooden desks at school anymore like they used to. They've got little Formica tables.
How sad.
And they showed his room on the news. Like they showed his bedroom, and I thought, I don't even know where that was. I think it must be in Gordonson House somewhere. She was showing his desk and saying this was the desk that he used, but he didn't enjoy his time there, did he? What did he say?
No, he didn't. I mean, all the princes, he was the least physical, wasn't he? In terms of challenges outside the comfort zone, as it were.
Yeah, Andrew liked it. Prince Andrew went there as well. He goes. He visits quite sometimes, but yeah.
It's quite impressive that you worked at that school.
Yeah, I worked at their summer school. Yeah, I've been there this year.
Listen, she's a very impressive lady.
4 summers I've worked there.
I mean, she makes excellent television programs when she's got the time and the facilities. She's a teacher, and I'm going to ask you about this now, you're a thespian, and you stay very close to the acting and artistic community.
Yes.
So what's going on at the moment in that area? Well,
in my world, there's 2 things going on. One is I'm just joining the chorus of an opera called Cerentola, which is Cinderella, written by Elgar. So it's going to be performed in St Mary in the Castle on the seafront on the 13th of October. So, I mean, it is Cinderella in opera form, and I just went to the first rehearsal last week. So I'm just in the chorus, and it's a modern version. So,
right, written by Edward Elgar, you say?
Yeah, written by Elgar, and
right. All men will be free.
Yes. So
march to liberty with me. Yeah.
I'm just one of the sort of crowd, the public, if you like, but the public, we're all little groups. So I seem to have been nominated to be in the Mafia. So I'm going to be a Mafia wife. So we can only wear white and grey. I have to think. First, I just look at the movie the other night, Mafia Wives. I thought, right.
Yeah, you don't get bumped off in this thing, do you?
No, we're trying to bump off everyone else. But it's just a part of the public. And there's fab little group. There's the Thieves. So that's going on at the moment. And the other thing is we just finished auditions. I seem to have been pulled in to be director of a pantomime in Icklesham Village Hall, which is on the A259 on the way to Rye, Icklesham Village. They used to have a theatre group, but now they're trying to get it going. So we're going to do Pantostein, which is a Frankenstein Dracula panto. So the pub,
games.
Yeah, the pub is called the Amputee Arms. So I'm just trying to get some people to design the stage.
Yes, right. Yeah, now is the time to start telling people about it.
Yes.
So what's the panto called?
It's called Pantostein, like Frankenstein, but Pantostein.
So has it got a leading boy or a leading lady?
We have a dame called Kevin. Somebody called Kevin. So we have got the cast.
Yeah.
We're doing the first read through on Thursday, and then read the whole play through with everybody, and then start rehearsals Thursday night and Sunday afternoon. So the panto is on in January. It's on
Right.
the 12th.
Okay. Well, now between now and January, which isn't that long actually, we expect sort of regular updates from you on progress on this panto, right?
I hope they turn up. And there's one chap who is a bit like, I said to somebody who's a bit like Norman Wisdom. Do you know who Norman Wisdom is, Max?
No.
Have you heard of Norman Wisdom?
Oh,
No, you see that? So Norman Wisdom was a sort of comic comedian from the Isle of Man, very funny. So this one chap turned out a bit like Norman Wisdom, very, very funny. So I hope that he's going to be Igor, like Frankenstein's sidekick. And I just hope we can keep the momentum going. People turn up for rehearsals, And
a couple of things about Norman Wisdom. First of all, in his latter days, he appeared at the Dome in Brighton quite frequently. He was a great favourite in Brighton. But also, he was actually nationally famous in Albania. They loved him in Albania. Yeah.
Really?
Don't ask me why, but that was one of the countries that treated him like a hero.
Yeah. Look him up, Max. Because...
what was his name? Yeah.
Norman Wisdom.
Yeah. I've been to the Isle of Man. There's a bronze of him sitting on a bench. Bronze statue of him in the Isle of Man, because he died in the Isle of Man, didn't he?
Oh, did he? I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember watching his movies as a boy. He was a very, very famous character. It just shows, doesn't it, how generations forget that sort of thing. He was the master of slapstick.
He was the master of slapstick, yeah. And his laugh and everything, and his flat cap, and so this chap turned up from the village who was actually doing a sort of skit of him. He looked just like him. So I said, we need him as Igor. I hope that he wants to do it. He's very keen to do it. So
that's great. Yeah.
I hope people get the commitment. Do you know what I mean? Because it's 2 rehearsals a week, and then nearer the time we're going to have more and dress rehearsals and etc. So
okay, and I'll tell you something else. Is as you give us your progress reports, keep on telling us a bit about Norman Wisdom, so that people can put Igor into perspective. If he's a reincarnation of Norman Wisdom, then it's well worthwhile. I mean, particularly people of the older generation. But his sort of slapstick, which was good, clean, honest fun, should make a comeback.
Yeah, I've got a photo of him somewhere because I went to the Isle of Man for a friend's wedding, and it would take ages.
He died in 2010.
He died in 2010?
Yeah. He was 95 years old.
Oh, we had a good ending. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, like you say, I don't know whether comedy as humour changed now that people, I think younger people, do you watch black and white? I don't think
I've ever watched anything in black and white in my life.
No. I mean, obviously we grew up with black and white, didn't we? TV initially, and then...
yes. And black and white films. I think his films are black and white, weren't they? All of them.
Yes, exactly. But
I mentioned earlier, I think to Max or to somebody, this television program now called Talking Pictures. Are you familiar with it?
I think I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
I don't know. It's channel 65 or something. But I discovered it, and I go to it regularly because they have a whole bunch of films from the 1950s, and you can actually appreciate the art and the skill that went into filmmaking in those days, because they didn't have 10,000 cars to crash. They didn't have cameras to hang from a balloon. It is good, honest filmmaking, and some of them are classics. So take a look, Jane. I think you would enjoy some of the movies that come up on it.
I think as well, people, they all speak correctly, don't they? With reporters' speech and these old plays. You see, sometimes I watch some old plays in black and white. It's all terribly, very well spoken. But they all
yes.
And now on TV, you don't. Everyone speaks how they speak with.
Yeah. No,
different
the
dialects.
maid would say, "Oh, good evening, sir. Mr. Jones is in the study." Yes.
And it's kind of quite slow. Well, the action's very slow.
Yeah. But you know, the other thing is that, Jane, is I watched a movie the other night, and I watched the dialogue, and I thought, you know, oh, yes, I really am going deaf. And I turned the sound up because I couldn't understand a word that was said. But even with the sound up, I could not understand a word that I said, because actors now talk as they would in real life. Hey, mister, are you doing... Whereas in the good days of Cary Grant and other greats, Katharine Hepburn and so on, they actually articulated. They could do accents, but they articulated, and you could understand every word. Why filmmakers put us through this misery of sound, I have no idea.
I have got this one photo. Can you see that? Wait a minute. Which way am I going? Oh, that way. Oh, wait a minute.
See it.
I'm going the wrong way. So Michael Watkins.
Oh, right.
So Michael Watkins is a relative of mine. He was in, you know, The Mousetrap, the play The Mousetrap.
Yes, yeah.
Which is on in London.
5 years or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on in London. He was an actor the 22nd year in London. I've been trying to find him. So in The Mousetrap in Agatha Christie in London, they change the actors every year. So you only run it, you know, you work for a year and then they get another cast.
Right.
He was in it in the 22nd year, and I've been trying to find him for years and years. My grandfather's brother, who went to London, moved to London, and then that was his son. I did find some pictures on stage, but I haven't, you know, it's one of those lost family things, trying to track him down. I don't know if he's still alive now.
Well, just on the off chance that, because we never know where this program is seen. It's seen in the most remarkable places. Just tell us who he is and that you're looking for him.
Well, his name's Michael Watkins. He's an actor. He was in London, probably came to London. Well, his father came to London probably in the 50s, early 60s, and he was in The Mousetrap, which is on in London. It's the longest show, isn't it? The longest play that's run. He played Detective Trot in the 22nd year of The Mousetrap, and so I don't know what happened.
In London, as far as you know.
Well, I presume so, or he might have a family, might have children, I don't know, in London, or he might have moved.
Yeah. Have you seen him in anything else since?
I haven't seen him in any. I've only seen. I looked on the Mousetrap images. There's a picture of him in a reunion at the Savoy Hotel as an older man, but that's all I could ever find. I mean, I have put it on social media over the times, but I always thought, you know, be interesting to find him. But
just a tip: try actors and artists yearbook. See if he's still listed in that.
Yeah, can you look into that? You've got to subscribe.
Well, I'll get young Max to do it. We'll let you know what he finds out.
Him? Let me turn the brightness down.
I can't see. I can't see. Yeah, that might be him. Is that Michael Watkins? Does it say Michael Watkins?
It says Michael Watkins, yeah.
Well, there you are, folks. If you want to find somebody who's in your family, tune into Mirador. We've started a new service. Thank you, James.
Where did you find that, Max?
Google. I can find.
Oh, you just Googled his name?
Yeah. I can find things quite quickly.
Oh, on images?
Yeah.
What does it say anything about him? Because there are a few Watkins in film. There's Ian Watkins. There's a few. Who's a director. Not Michael D. Watkins, author, is it? No. Not Canadian-born author. Not him. No. I'll have to have another search.
No, this isn't him.
No, is that the one he's an author?
Photographer.
Okay. Max will do some basic research for you, because in which case you and Max can do a program together, saying how you discovered this long lost cousin of yours.
Yeah. So what did you say the stage, the magazine, the book was?
It's the Writers and Artists Yearbook, and normally what it does is it lists everybody that's in equity.
Yeah.
So it's worth a look.
I'll have a look.
Now, you wouldn't believe it, but I'm beginning to work my way through this beer that I was given first thing. I'm beginning to like this job. Right, Jane. Now, what have you got in the books for us? I know you're pretty full with your thespian activities, but you do some delightful programs from time to time. Have you got anything cooking for us?
I sent them to you. Did you get them?
Yes, I did get them. I've looked through them. I can have them on. Oh, hang on a minute. Suzanne's joined us.
Suzanne Musho has joined us. Well done.
Yes, I did get the videos.
And to see you.
Oh.
Good
Hello.
morning, Suzanne Musho.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning. How are you all?
Fine. And there is Jane in Hastings.
Hello. Hi.
And Mad Max and me here in Lewis.
All right.
Right. So what have you been up to?
Well, I mean, watching the amazing ceremony yesterday. I mean, that was extraordinary.
It was a bit, wasn't it?
Yes. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, it was quite early here to watch it, similar to right now. But yeah, I mean, how are you all doing? Are you all okay?
Yes. In fact, if you wanted to have a quick word with Jane, she actually struggled up to London to try and get in the queue.
Well, I kind of tried and failed. I went on Wednesday, the first day. I was just saying earlier, like I naively thought that it was open at 5, so I thought, well, I'll get there for 5. But obviously, people had been queuing all day before it started at 5 on Wednesday, and I walked to the end of the queue. You had to get the wristbands, so that if you wanted to come out of the queue to use the loo or get a coffee. So I got to the end of the queue and I said, where are the wristbands? He said, oh, no, you have to join another queue to get a wristband. And I probably walked the 5 miles, and by then it was about 6 o'clock, and I was panicking really about, getting home at 3-4 o'clock in the morning. What I'd have to sit at the station or sit in London all night for the first train home. So I actually came home. So I'm not one of the British who did queue. And I kind of regret not sticking it out. But on the news they were saying it's 30-hour queue. But a policeman said, oh, no, it's 10 hours. But so I came home. So, but never mind.
Now, you've said that you find it amazing, Suzanne. Give us some of your reactions, and also what was the reaction of New Yorkers? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm part of kind of the creative world, in New York, and so it was interesting to see all of my friends posted the photographs of the ceremony, which I didn't think would necessarily happen, but. My architect friends and my designer friends, some of them are textile designers and things like that. And they took these extraordinary photographs, obviously of the TV, of aspects of the funeral and of the entire procession. And so there are some people who, just like New York, didn't even know it was happening. But the ones who did were quite impressed, And the things that struck me were just obviously the seriousness of it, and then just the incredible precision. Like it didn't seem like there was a single thing like not considered, But then conversely, back in New York, we have the UN Assembly here. I don't know if you know what happens in New York City when we have the UN Assembly. The city basically shuts down. You can't drive anywhere. It's like almost impossible to even take a bike. So you have to walk everywhere unless you want to take the subways. But of course, the subways are packed because nobody can get around up above, So yesterday was just crazy. I got into a cab having forgotten that it was the General Assembly, and I had to go meet my son for a doctor's appointment. And it's such a New York City cab experience. I get inside. Even before I put my foot in the cab, he's already started to meter, which is like a very typical cab driver thing. So I get in the cab, I sit down, and I said, all right, I'm going to 53rd and 3rd. And he goes, oh, no, you're not. No. I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm not taking you there. He said, where else can we go? And I said, no, but that's where I'm going. I said, you have to take me. And he said, no, it's the assembly. You're never going to get there. And I had forgotten. And I was like, well, I'm now down to my last really method of getting up there in time for my son. So I said, no, you're going. So I did the route on my phone. And I said, just take this avenue and take this street and everything. And he finally relented, but he was a complete curmudgeon the entire time. He was like, oh, this is horrible. You're the whole reason I'm in this traffic. And I said, well, if you're to be driving in Manhattan today, you're to be in this traffic. There's no other choice, So anyway, but it gets packed. And then my son had his doctor's appointment. And then I ended up walking to the office, and I ended up going into an area that was only for dignitaries, because I'm all of a sudden with all of these people like coming out of the Plaza Hotel, all dressed up, going to the UN, and there were all these diplomats, and I was like, all right, I'm obviously in the wrong place, but I didn't get kicked out. So that's New York right now.
Cool. Is that just for one day, or does it go on?
No, it's 2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks.
Yeah, and when the president gets here, when the United States president gets here, it's even worse. I mean, you can't do anything. Like not even like what I did would be impossible. So my daughter has her track meet on Thursday. I have no idea how I'm going to get there because it's up in the Bronx. But anyway.
One of the incredible things I thought yesterday is watching Joe Biden and his wife walk into Westminster Abbey. There were no visible signs of protection at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No visible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they went through the list of people who were there, from the security perspective in the whole city, and how, it was.
Yeah, I mean, with 100 leaders there, you would have thought they'd been bristling, but I couldn't spot any of them.
Yeah.
I know. I did think that'd be prime target, wouldn't it? If somebody really wanted to go, like they're all there together, you think, "Oh crikey, that's."
Somebody's going to get a bomb into the Abbey, but
yeah.
Thank goodness that didn't happen.
No, exactly.
But it was quite a day.
Yes, indeed. So, did you? You said the position, but give us Jane gave us a bit of her perspective on what happened yesterday. Let's hear your perspective on, generally speaking, the funeral.
Yeah, well, one thing that we get all these reports that, Harry and Meghan weren't allowed to do this, and Harry and Meghan weren't allowed to do this, and, he was allowed to wear this, but the initials were ripped out of his suit and all these kinds of things. And I don't know if any of it is true, but it was kind of like, I mean, doesn't the monarchy now belong to King Charles? So
it's all about the crown, though. If you watch the Netflix, the series, The Crown, it is all about the crown, isn't it? I mean, Queen Elizabeth protecting the crown is the most important thing. And obviously, Harry, renounced, went over to the States with Meghan, and so he's not a royal member of the crown now. So that's why he couldn't have ER on his armband. I think it's a bit of a shame he wasn't allowed to wear his military uniform, because he served in Afghanistan 2 series. Right. He was in the military, but it's about him not being a member. They chose to move to the States, and he's not a member of the royal family now.
Well, so. Harry and Meghan's name here is essentially mud. I've never met anyone. I've never personally met anyone who's a fan of Meghan Markle.
Yeah.
Never.
Well, they went out to talk to the public. It was William who said they should pull together, to speak to people who were putting flowers. And apparently Meghan was anxious. And apparently a few people were quite rude to her when she came out. But, what they said, who knows? But she'd probably have mixed reception, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I think people either like her or they don't. I was just saying earlier about the fact she had the pearls on. The Queen gave her some jewelry when she got married, pearl earrings for 25,000 because pearls are mourning jewelry, and I thought there she is facing the coffin with the Queen's pearls on, having had that interview with Oprah Winfrey about completely running down the Queen and I just thought, really, how can you stand there?
Right. I don't understand. I mean, it's one thing when somebody decides that they can't do something for whatever reasons they have, right? But then to do that interview, I still feel like if my brother were to do an interview like that, I mean, I would kill him, it's like
I know, yeah.
Wouldn't kill him, but
and I just say probably Harry's torn, he's been brought up with the monarchy. So she's a fish out of water over here, and he's a bit of a fish out of water in the States, I would imagine.
Yeah.
What she's creating stuff for him to do, but I would think he still probably he must feel it a bit, out of his comfort zone, maybe.
But I mean, both of them, particularly Catherine, looked just devastatingly beautiful. I mean, Catherine is, is she even human? I mean, she's there is like nothing wrong with her. You look at these photographs. Every way she turns, she has a perfect profile. She has a perfect nose.
She's so thin as well. How does she stay so thin?
After 3 kids, God bless her. I don't know how she does it.
She was talking about she takes slimming tablets, which William didn't. Apparently, she takes some sort of slimming.
Oh, well, send them over here. We need more.
The strange thing is from time to time, I actually go to Cambridge University and lecture on protocol. And some of the things that the royals have to go through, just in the sort of dress that they have. I mean, in some instances, lead weights put into the hems so the wind doesn't actually lift the skirt above the knee. It is quite incredible what they have to do. And I would suspect that people may well have been sympathetic to Harry wearing his uniform, and somebody somewhere said, "No, hang on, this is the protocol." That's what
it is all about, isn't it? The rules.
Protocol is absolute hell.
And the thing is, it's very historic as well, isn't it? They were saying even some of the stuff they did yesterday, it was like 500 years old. They follow the whole
1,000 probably.
Yeah, maybe a thousand. Yes, they follow.
Actually, Westminster was where the very first Parliament sat in 1264. And the Palace of St. James, the Westminster Palace, was built in about 11 something, and every coronation has been held there ever since, and I would imagine every state funeral. And in fact, in Westminster itself, King William the Conqueror was crowned. And there's a funny vignette about it because in those days, of course, the Saxons, Hereward the Wake, was still ravaging, roving around the land, knocking off Normans because they didn't like the idea of being taken over. And apparently the racket that went on inside Westminster was so great that the people outside thought there was an attack. So they burst in to try and protect the people inside, to be met by the people inside who thought they were being attacked from outside. And apparently there's one hell of a scrap.
Well, the castle up the road, not even, 200 meters away? The castle up the road from here is almost 1,000 years old. That's 960-something years old.
Well, William the Conqueror built a lot of the churches, didn't he? I mean, he sort of raped and plundered like the UK and went through Europe and places like Rouen. He built the 2 cathedrals, the big one for himself and the smaller one for his Queen Mathilde to say sorry to God for pillaging and built the most amazing churches right through Europe, didn't he? So through Germany, through Italy, Spain, although he got sacked from Spain.
Yes.
So
I'll tell you the effect that the Normans, to some extent, had. There's a historical society here who do a very good job about research, But I was writing an article about Grunwalder, sorry, who actually built our local priory in 1080. And I discovered a very remote document that suggested that she had it off with the mad monk. And I didn't dare put it into the article because they would have hung, drawn, and quartered me.
Very nicely put. So, Suzanne, what do the Americans think of Harry and Meghan? Or
I don't know. I think in general, I mean, most people feel like you kind of do what you do, but you don't. I think it's really the interview that I think really upset a lot of people. But, I mean, it's one thing to just decide that you're not going to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
But then to make your family feel so badly is a whole different thing. But I don't know. She's never been particularly famous here. She's
just producing this podcast called Autonomous. Did you see that? Which she actually put on hold, is meant to be released. I don't know, the last few days. During this funeral, this time. She put it on hold, but then it seemed to be on the internet. Hi, I'm Meghan. This is the real me, and you think, like Harry's apparently said to her, it's not about her. This whole funeral, it's not. The focus mustn't be on her. I mean, that's what she's craving the whole time, isn't she? I guess the limelight and fame. I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been reading some more things about it, and I guess Harry really felt like her life was in danger there, and not because people were necessarily after her, but that she was just so uncomfortable. So, look, that's what you do for your spouse if there's anything that.
What with the UK? Well, I think going into the royal family must be hard. For any of them, people like Fergie, Diana.
Catherine, yeah, exactly.
They're sort of commoners, it's another world, isn't it? And the rules.
But I always say you can cry yourself all the way to the bank when they start crying about it. I'm like, just stop. Obviously, I didn't mean
I think that's what, like you say, leave, go to the States, but leave with dignity and kind of, keep don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you say, you want another life, it's not for you, fair enough, but don't then run it down,
Suzanne, you have an incredible family. Your family unit is quite remarkable. I mean, you do so many things together. Your children are successful. You're successful. Your husband's successful. Now, I always thought in my time in Canada that the American family unit was very strong throughout the country. Is it still as strong as you demonstrate?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the things that my husband and I talked about, we don't really have many friends. I mean, we do have some friends, but whose marriages have broken up, and we have a lot of our friends whose marriages are still together 20 years, which is quite an accomplishment, because in the United States, and I think maybe even more, and in more countries, the divorce rate's like 50%, so that's been wonderful. And then, the kids are terrific, and everybody does so much for their kids. I mean, everybody does the sports after school. I mean, that whole thing, getting to Genevieve's track meets is like, oh my God, it's like, it's trying to move mountains to get there. Yeah.
How old are your kids?
So my oldest just started college. So she just turned 18. So she was home for the weekend from her first year in college. So she had spent a month there and came home, and we had a big birthday dinner for her. And so she just turned 18. And then my son is 16. And then my youngest just turned 12. So, so she's
I'm 18 as well.
Yeah. What was good morning.
Sorry,
No, it's all right. You can say hello if you wish.
I'm looking for somebody to get us
Some breakfast.
coffee.
Oh, a coffee. Ask at the desk. Yeah.
Ask.
Yes. But I wondered whether, in fact, okay, Hollywood is Hollywood, but whether, in fact, Meghan and Harry had actually offended the concept of a family unit in the United States.
Well, Americans are all about freedom and doing whatever we want to do. So there's that aspect of it. It's like, look, just do whatever you want to do. But as I said, I do think that there's that element of, well, as you're pursuing your freedom, which of course we're big about freedom, you don't need to take anybody down with you. You just
that's it. Yeah.
You kind of move on. So I think that there's a bit of that. But then, Americans are also very blasé. So a lot of them probably don't even, maybe even don't even know what's going on, So,
well, are they quite it's such a big country? Are they quite parochial and sort of, they don't, like you say, they don't know a lot about what's going on in other states, or are they?
No, it's not that. It's just that they're kind of, they don't bother with other people's business kind of thing,
Right, yeah.
But and you're right. I mean, there are some states or even some areas where they just don't bother with anything other than their own area.
Yeah, that's it. It's such a huge country, isn't it?
It's a big country.
I have a question for you, Jane. I don't think I've ever asked you, but do you have kids?
No kids.
No? Oh,
no, I didn't want to have kids. It was an early decision. I'm not saying I regret it now. The only thing I regret probably now is I think, there's nobody coming through the door. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know. So many people don't get on with their kids and think, they don't have a lot to do. I mean, I have the world's children. I think that's what I would say now. Teaching and having international kids. I probably know more about children than some parents. Actually, I reckon. But, I've had lovely kids. I've had terrible kids. I've had polite kids. I've had rude kids. So no, I don't have kids. No.
Well, I've got a few siblings. I'm actually one of 10.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite unusual these days. I mean, my mother was one of 15, but
what?
Yeah, her generation maybe more. I always used to say, one of 15. They had a farm in Wales. I always used to say my grandfather came back from the First World War. He survived the First World War. That was his job.
Yeah.
To repopulate.
Well, just to be clear, my mum didn't have 10 kids. My mum's only had 3 kids.
Are they?
It's my dad who's had the lots of kids.
What do you mean separately? I mean, are they second marriage or something?
Yeah, second, third, and fourth.
I've done quite a amount of research for some of the stories that I've written about Sussex and smugglers and so on and so forth. And of course, it was a very remote county, and it would say that the fishermen would go down and they barely made a living, and the farmers and so on and so forth. But they all had huge families. And as one historian said, is when they got home, what the hell else did they have to do?
Yeah, exactly.
They had the energy. I mean, my grandparents had a farm in Wales in the Brecon Beacons. I mean, I don't, with farming and, having heavy horses and, they didn't have the machinery then that they have now. Harry had the energy. 15 kids.
That's exactly why they had all the kids, right?
Yeah, the thing is,
machinery.
Yeah, you've got the older kids. They all worked on the land, I suppose. So you've got your staff.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, I must confess this. I was born into a sort of an Edwardian family. I had great aunts and great uncles and grandparents and so on coming out of my ears when I was a boy. And now, actually, I've got a brother left, and my wife's family in Canada, which are profuse, but almost nobody left as a relative in the United Kingdom. So,
yeah.
You see your brother a lot?
No. We converse from time to time. He sends me photographs of us when we were 6 or something. But that's a sight to behold. Ladies, it's 10:59.
Yes.
And what a lovely, lively, as always, getting the two of you on together is great because you are both so bubbly. I actually went, Jane. This is for you because I've told Suzanne. I went around to see some friends of mine the other day, and the lady who is she's early 70s, I guess, but she looks after all sorts of people, and she plays bridge and she does this. She's a typical society lady, and I call her my blue-arsed fly. And I said to her, Janet, I've got another blue-arsed fly in New York, Suzanne, and she's all over the place, dashing here, dashing there, having exactly the same sort of life as you. So I've got two blue-arsed flies, and you make life absolutely wonderful. Jane, you may be actually ready to be inducted into the Association of Blue-Arsed Flies.
Yeah, I think I'll fit that. I'm always dashing here, there, and everywhere.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for being with us. It's been a wonderful morning. Terrific perspectives and your experiences and so on. I know I ask you each week, so try to keep a little diary. I ask you what you've done, where you've been, and so on, because actually you may be interested to know that some viewers or many viewers find it quite educational. We make a basic assumption that we know what's going on in somebody else's country, or if for that matter, somebody else's town, and we know diddly squat. We really, you passing on your experiences and what you do and what you plan is very educational for those of us who live in a small town, or for that matter, those of us who live in a big town, to find out how other people live. We learn a lot. So thanks for doing that. But also, I mean, you're just so much fun. We'll talk to you next week.
You all. Okay. I'm in Italy next week, so.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. How do I? Okay.
Yeah,
see you next week.
Okay.
Bye. Have a good rest of your week.
Well, that's it. What an interesting morning. It flew by.
It did.
Absolutely flew by. And there's nothing like good conversation. We try hard to bring you some video in between, but because we had both Jane and Suzanne on this morning, talking to them, we went through a whole host of things. So although we showed a bit of my being chased by a bear, we'll show you that tomorrow or the next day or whenever, so that you can catch up with my adventures in breaking the world half-mile record, breaking the high jump record, and what was the motivation. So until then, this is Uncle Max, the Max, and the Mouth, Mr. Keith, signing off for this morning, and we will be back tomorrow full of piss and vinegar. Well, actually, he'll be back tomorrow with Stuart because it's Energy Day to find out what on earth is happening in the energy sector.
He wasn't here last week, so this will be the first.
He spoke to me last night, and he seems to be okay. So I think you'll have him back. He's also lining up a new series that we're starting, and we should have shown it this morning, but we won't. We'll show it tomorrow morning. It's an interview with his daughter, which was very interesting, and we are starting a series, an occasional series called A Conversation with Stuart Dolby, and some interesting people he's got indeed. So watch out for that. Watch out for these two wild beasts tomorrow. I normally leave them alone. Sometimes I have to come in and intercede when they're fighting on the floor together and forgetting that they're on television. Then on Thursday, we have Max again with Liza Page, another feisty lady who is coming along. I hope that we're going to test out a little bit a chap called Steve, who is his companion on the health program. But we're going to see if Steve feels comfortable sitting in for the odd co-host situation.
For now, I'm not sure if the health show will be delayed.
Well, the health show may be delayed because of he's broken down. However, I said to you, you'll begin to show the benefits of it. Yes, you really are. So actions speak louder than words. What a pity your wrist has gone. The royal funeral is over. We now settle down into a new era of Charles III and the Prime Minister Liz Truss. Interesting times. Oh, there's Steve just come in there. He's ready to make it. Steve, come and look over our shoulder.
What's going on?
Come here. We want people to see you because we just said that on Thursday you're going to come in and try out a little bit about presenting. So here he is Steve. He also is the co-host of the health program with Max. So we are creating our cast of characters, and real characters they are. There's nothing ordinary about anybody that comes onto this program. So here's the latest edition. Right.
Thank you very much. I'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah. And girls, if you're coming into the hotel,
don't start trying to sell me.
Don't knock the door down. We'll see you tomorrow. Table Pit.
Bye.
Yes.